So I'm starting this series because I found out that my ex-husband passed away, and I tried to think of one nice thing he's done, and I couldn't come up with not one. But all these memories came back to me. A young, naive girl about to become a woman, and not a feeling of protection. So you will get my stories, but at the end, you will get the moral of my stories too, okay? Because there are some lessons to be learned for young ladies out here. Heck, even the older ladies, okay? Baby, I went down a rabbit hole and dug up some feelings I totally forgot about, okay? So grab your drinks and listen in. Oh, so let me put out this doggone disclaimer, okay? These are true stories based on my life, situations, and facts. Real names are not used to protect the individual. These stories are times in my life and are not in chronological order. So let's get started on the Military Wife series. Baby, this episode, okay? This episode is called The Time I Found Out My Neighbor Was a Crackhead and My Husband Was Cheating. I was a young wife, 20 years old, and married a military man. So the branch that the military he was in was the Navy, and we were stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay, so let's call this the young, naive as hell stage of my life. At this stage of our young marriage, we were already having problems. And to be honest with you, the marriage lasted about 2 years. And the reason it lasted about 2 years is because at least 12 of those months, he was out on tour. Baby, moving down to Virginia, it made my eyes wide open. Like, I was so naive, it was ridiculous. Like, I believed in getting married, the white picket fence, and the dog, and the 2.2 children. Oh my God, I was so naive. Anyway, let me get into this story. So we were living in these garden apartments. You know, it was like you walk in, it's 4 apartments, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Let me see if I can find a picture. It was very close and similar to these apartments, but I need y'all to keep in mind. Keep this picture of these apartments in mind, okay? So we lived upstairs. We lived on the left, and my neighbors lived on the right, which was right across the hall. Like, you could spread your 2 arms. That's how close we were as neighbors. We were steps away. I mean, damn near 2 arm lengths away, as I was just saying. Anyway, when we first moved there, it was about the husband and me, okay? We were cordial to the neighbors. All was calm. After the things I found out before we moved to this apartment. Now, if y'all want to know about the stuff I went through in the prior apartment, let me know in the comments, okay? So anyway, as y'all know, well, maybe y'all don't know. So let me explain real quick. So in the Navy, you know, the servicemen or women, they do tours, and it's every 6 months. So basically 6 months out of the year, your significant other is gone, okay? So before he went on tour, I wanted to go home to visit my family because I was down there with no support system, no family, no nobody. I was just there as his military wife. I was just ready to go home for a week or two. I do remember being homesick, and you may ask why, because I left everybody to get married at 19. Word of advice. Don't do it. Don't get married so young. Be a little selfish with your life. No, be a lot selfish with your life. And don't put nobody's life before you, okay? Focus on your career, school, learn yourself. Hell, love yourself first, okay? Side note, I was in a great college, Hunter College in New York City, and I dropped out because I was in love. Child. He wanted to marry me. In hindsight, the biggest mistake of my life, but no regrets. I really could have stayed in college while he Navied, okay? But baby, when you young and naive, mind you, every adult tried to tell me, what's the rush? But you know when you young, dumb, and full up, you know the rest. Like, I actually lost my virginity to this man. So you know I was cuckoo for Cocoa Buff over this freaking man, okay? I was so naive. Anyway, let's get back to this story on how I found out my neighbor was a crackhead and my husband was cheating. So I leave to go visit my family. The husband didn't come because he had to work. Baby, in hindsight, that nigga probably was up in somebody's drawers, okay? Okay? In the Navy, you have to request time off, you know, unless it's an emergency, and he claimed he couldn't get the time off. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I don't know. I never knew I just thought about that now. He probably was up in somebody's jaws. Anyway, I had a time back home, visiting my mom, my sisters, my friends, my brothers, and I almost didn't want to come back. Okay, but I was the military wife. You know, I had to go back to Norfolk to be with the husband. So I get back to Norfolk. Me and the husband, we back on our routine. Okay, so one of the reasons that we moved was to get a fresh start from that old place. And for me to go back to school, you know, I had to get on the bus. We did have a car, but, you know, he had to get to work. But I just wanted to get back to me, right? So he went back to work. I went back to school at night so he could watch the baby after he came home from work. So this one particular day, although we had our routine, the husband decided that I didn't need to go to school that day. I was enrolled in like a community college out there in Virginia. So I get dressed, I get ready, you know, to walk out the door. But he decides to stand in front of the door with our daughter in his hands telling me I'm not going to school. What? Yo, that pissed me off because we were doing fine. We had our little routine. Like, what changed all of a sudden? Hindsight, that nigga probably wanted to go see a biatch, okay? So he kept blocking the door. Mind you, I'm getting madder and madder. You know, I'm tall, but he was taller than me. I was like 5'11", 180 at the time. He's 6'4", who knows, close to 300. So, you know, I couldn't do nothing. Baby, it was a little tussle because he was stronger than me, but it enraged the hell out of me. Like, I'm a Taurus the bull, okay? You know how once that red come, we charging, right? So I said, if you don't move, I'm going to jump out this window. Now, go back to that picture I just showed y'all. We lived on the second floor on the left-hand side, right? But when you piss, you don't be thinking. In my mind, I was like, he just trying to stop me from getting to me, you know, type of thing. Because I love school. I really wish I wouldn't have left. I should have let him Navy. But anyway, I digress. But I was determined to let him know he wasn't going to stop this show. No one monkey stop no show, okay? So this fool watched me go to the window, pull a window out, kick the screen out the window, okay? Throw my first leg over the windowsill. Throw my second leg over the windowsill. Mind you, I had the keys to the car in my hand because he wasn't able to grab that, right? Because he was too busy trying to block me from going out the door. Baby, I'm balancing on the edge, baby. I'm balancing on the edge of this windowsill. And I went for it. Baby, let me tell you something. It didn't look that far. The jump didn't look that far. But baby, when I hit that concrete, it was shock. I ain't know what to expect. I felt it through my whole body. Okay. But I feel like the adrenaline is what saved me. Because I was so mad that this man would try to stop me from going to school. Especially since things was going so good. Our routine was on point. It was no problems until that particular day. Some bitch probably called him. Like when I landed, like I didn't fall all the way out. I felt like Spider-Woman, like one knee down, one leg up. You know, because I don't remember being laid out. Because I kind of caught myself, although, ooh, that was a hard hit, okay? Thank God it was only the second floor in the garden apartment, okay? Baby, when I think about that girl, just stupid. Just stupid, trying to prove a point. One knee down, one leg up. You know, I felt like I landed like that. But baby, when I stood up, my ankle was, I was limping a little bit. But that's all right. I gathered myself, got my little book bag together, and I was on my way to school. And I looked back up at the window, and this fool was laughing. I was limping, and I kindly took my butt to school. I went to class like nothing ever happened. I totally forgot about what just happened. Well, I ain't forget about it. I just filed it away in the back of my mind. I just focused on my schooling. It kind of took me away from what just happened or what just transpired. So I get back home, and the minute I walk in the door, he want to hug me and say he's sorry. He said he didn't think I would jump out the window. Bitch, but I did. Okay. See, back then, I ain't know what an insecure man looked like. I thought it was just love, the love bomb. Baby, I ain't forget that okay, I filed it away. With the rest of the he done put me through, taking me from my hometown down there with no support. Like, I had no family in Norfolk, so you could imagine he put me through. I remember at some point I went to go speak to the Navy support for spouses, and I feel like my neighbors told me about this, but I really can't remember. But anyway, I made my way down to their office, okay, and they advised me to go into a shelter. And at this point, I was sick of his ass, okay, trying to make it work, but sick of his ass, okay, and I'm just like, I'm out. Let's see how he feel when we leave, right? Baby, I go into this shelter. He didn't know where we was at. But I called my mama, and my mama was like, he was calling to find out where I was at. Blip, 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 blip. He thought I went back home. Baby, I wish I would have went back home, okay? And enrolled my ass back in that good school, okay? Baby, but when you're young, naive, and thinking you in love, and I felt sorry for his ass. So I stayed in that shelter for all about a week, and I came back home, okay? Oh, so young and naive, child. Anyway, he was about to leave for tour. By the time I got back home, and me and a neighbor was talking, and she, we was forming a friendship. Her husband was in the military as well. So in preparation of me, the husband going on tour, my neighbor agreed to watch, my baby girl while I went to class. She was a stay-at-home mom as well. She had a son. It was only for about 2 hours, including the commute to and from school. And she did it for a small fee. It wasn't, if it was $50 for the week, because I was in school like maybe 3 days out the week, and she may have asked for $25 per day or whatever, something like that. I can't really remember. Anyway, but she was very helpful in me going to school, getting into school and all this other stuff. But anyway, the husband leaves for tour, and all is going well. I'm going to class, and they be watching my baby, very reliable. Life is good until I decide to go check the mailbox, as I did on a regular basis, okay? But this particular day, it was a card or a piece of mail in there anyway, and was just littered with perfume. And it was addressed to the husband. Y'all ready for this? I almost wish I would have kept it so that I could read it word for word, what this lady said. But basically, when I opened the letter up, again, heavily scented with perfume, and if I'm not mistaken, it might have been a lipstick kiss on it, okay? And it also had a female's name that I didn't recognize. So, bitch, I was opening that letter. Okay. He was out on tour. He had no idea about it. Some shite was about to come to light. That this was going to come to light. He didn't expect this, all right? So, inside the envelope was this postcard. Again, at this point, I can't remember word for word. But basically, the gist of this letter or note or whatever you want to call it, she said she had a wonderful time with him this weekend, and she hoped that she could see him again, and left her number. Okay. So meanwhile, while I'm at the shelter, he out partying and meeting bitches and bringing them back to our apartment. Okay. So let me put it all into perspective for you. When I went into the shelter for about a week, he was laying it low and spreading it wide. Okay. Trifling. I called one of my homegirls back home who was with the shits. Okay. I read the card to her, and she was like, call her. Basically, she hyped me up, but I was gonna call her anyway, okay? She ain't had to do too much hyping, okay? I feel like I had her on 3-way. So we just came up with a strategy so we could get the intel, because divorce was on the record, okay? I should call her one day and then let her give her version of what happened, because she funny as hell. Because it really had nothing to do with this woman. It was about his trifling ass, okay? So I proceeded to call this lady, and pretty much ring. I asked her for her name or whatever. I know she was a little shocked because she probably was expecting him to answer the phone, with the area code shit. She probably had the house number. Who knows, okay? Because back then, we did have call ID back then. This was way before cell phones, okay? No, I'm telling my age, okay? So I was like, hi, I'm calling because I just received a letter in the mail that you sent to my husband. And she was like, husband? I said, yes, husband. And I was just like, where did you meet him? And she explained that she was visiting family, and they met at some club, and they came back to the house. And I asked her, like, you ain't see our pictures hanging around? But saying that didn't mean nothing, because, baby, he could have took them pictures down. I don't even know. She said she had no idea. She wasn't paying attention. The lady proceeded to apologize because she didn't know he was married. I asked her if she would be willing to testify or give a statement because I'm filing for divorce. And she was like, yes. So she apologized again and tells me to call her if I need her. Okay. Like, it went so well. I was like, all right, she down for the shits too. But baby, when I called her back, she done changed her number. Okay. I already know what this lady was thinking. Now that I'm older, she was like, oh, I'm going to surprise him with a letter in the mail, because the nigga made her think he was single. Had a nice apartment and all of that. So she was like, all right, I'm gonna grab this one up. He in the military too. She thought she was doing something special. But she ain't know she ran upon a trifling man. And for her to say she ain't noticed no pictures, it was a whole baby room in there. You ain't noticed none of that, but you managed to grab up his address to send him a letter. Again, it ain't even about her. I'm just saying, this the things we women do. And what we get in return is some trifling man playing games with people's lives instead of being honest from the jump. She changed her number. In the meantime, I called my mom and she arranged for me to come home for a few days, just to get away from the BS. School was coming on break, so I was out. Before I left, I arranged for my neighbor to pay my rent. Now, remember, y'all got to remember, I'm 19 years old. Okay, 19 years old. Naive as hell. Trusting of everybody, okay? I just wanted to get out of that place where I had no family, no friends, okay? I left my debit card with her to withdraw the rent money and pay the rent when she pays her rent, right? We've gotten close enough to, Now, mind you, I've never been in these people's house. The husband was there. The baby was there. I've never been in these people's house and smelled nothing out of sorts. Not even weed. So that's why I was like, what the hell? But anyway, I trusted her to watch my baby, which she did. She was very reliable. While I went to school, it was no reason for me to think that I couldn't trust her, right? We have been over each other's house. We had play dates with our kids. We ate meals at each other's houses. Her husband went to work every day, came back home, because he was a high-ranking military guy. Well, higher ranking than the man I'm It was just no reason not to trust him. I go home, relieved to be in a stress-free environment. My mom always made me feel safe. Around my friends, my family, my sister, I just felt safe. I was in a familiar place. I was at home. So, baby, I was hanging out with my friends. My mom, she gave me space to hang out with my friends while she watched the baby girl. Anyway, I went to get some money out the doggone ATM. And baby, there was no money on my card. Now, mind you, it was only about $1,000 on the card. But still, there was no money on my card. Okay? About $600 of that at the time was for a 2-bedroom apartment. So about $600 of that was for my rent. Or was it like $675, something like that for my rent. So, the rest I had, I could spend a little whatever, right? I was like, oh no, what's going on? I have to call the bank. I ain't thinking that. I thought, because I came from Virginia, I couldn't use the card in New York City. That's what I was thinking. So my friends covered me, and I enjoyed myself. I ain't think nothing of it. I'm going to call the bank in the morning. Because surely there had to be some money in my account because I know once she paid the rent, there would still have been more money, right? So the next day, I called the bank and they confirmed that I have a zero balance. And I remember being stuck on stupid like, what? I said, how is there a zero balance? I haven't even used my card. I tried one time to get money and I haven't even used my card. And the bank person proceeded to tell me there was several withdrawals. And I was like, what? I was like, all right, when I get back, I'll handle that. But I was still stuck on stupid because I was like, what is going on? I told my mother, and baby, she gave me the life lesson, okay? She said, don't ever, do you hear me? She said, don't ever hand your stuff over like that to people to handle. She was like, you could have paid rent before you left. And baby, that was a life lesson for me at 19 years old. Being so trusting. It really didn't dawn on me that I could pay my rent before I left. I didn't have to give her, but baby, but like I told you, I was naive. Do you hear me? I was in school, a bookworm, all of that. Little bit of street smarts, but baby, I grew up, okay? Let me just tell you, I remember feeling real stupid and defeated. On top of finding out that the husband was cheating, now my neighbor done stole my money. But my mom spoke life into me about life lessons and how to handle things. And basically to not let folk F with your money. Side note, okay. I never paid the rent. The husband did. But with him going out on tour, it was my responsibility now. Let's just reiterate, okay? Because as I'm telling this story, I was like, damn, girl, you was stupid. First time away from home in a city where I know no one, no family, just the husband. He had work. I had baby in school. Anyway, I enjoyed the rest of my stay back home. And of course, my mom sent me home with some money in my pocket. But I couldn't wait to get back to Virginia to find out what the happened to my money. Okay. So I get back to Virginia. I couldn't put my bags down fast enough. It must have been about 10 a.m. when I got back. Okay. I took a deep breath because surely my neighbor didn't use all my goddamn money. Okay. For no reason. I had no reason not to trust her. Her and her husband were cool. They were a cool couple. They had friends over. We used to have game night, all of that. So surely. So I knocked on the door with the hopes of resolution, that it was no big deal. Remember this stage of my life, dumb and naive. Okay, I got to keep reiterating it. My neighbor opens the door. I immediately ask, No pleasantries. Where is my money? I gave you my debit card. I went home, went to get some money, and there's no money on my card. And the only person that had my card was you. My neighbor stood there dumbfounded. Maybe because she didn't expect the directness, or maybe, because she had a plan in place to explain it to me. But because I came at her with directness, she didn't know what to say. By this time, my husband done walked to the door. Like, what's going on? I proceeded to tell her husband, like, I left my debit card with her. She was supposed to pay my rent when y'all paid y'all rent, and my rent ain't paid, and my money is gone. He done heard the conversation, okay? At this point, her husband was like, what? He was like, give me a second, right? Now, mind you, my voice was, pretty even, pretty level, but straight to the point. I was calm, however assertive, like, bitch better have my motherfucking money, okay? Type levels, okay? The neighbor's husband said, give us a second. So I went back in my apartment and sat on the couch. I was really perturbed, still feeling stupid, upset a little bit, angry a little bit, because I had no answers. I didn't know or anticipate if I could pay this rent, okay? Although I did have money coming in, as a Navy wife, but that was our monthly money, that was my monthly stipend, put it that way. Because, let me explain, like, once the husband goes on tour, the wife gets the stipends or whatever. They get a little change in their pocket, but the wife get most of the money. Any military wife, let me know, because that's how it goes. Anyway, I didn't know what they was going to come back with. And, I kind of remember hearing loud noises, maybe some thud-umps, pops over the, you know what I'm saying? But I couldn't really hear what was being said. Okay. I feel like he bopped her up a little bit. Okay. He was mollywopping. Again, I remember feeling stupid and just trusting everybody. Baby, this was my life lesson. Okay. I was out on my own for the first time, a young wife, trying to be responsible, okay, with no support system, because they was all back home. And just when I was getting ready to have a meltdown and really contemplate moving my ass back home to New York City, a knock at the door. It was the neighbor's husband. He apologized. He didn't even know about it. He asked how much was on the card. I let him know it was about $1,000 supposed to pay, but she used all the money. He told me that, he wouldn't be able to pay, the full $1,000 back, but he'll give me the rent money plus $100, every time he get paid. And I agreed to it. So I received the money to go pay my rent the same day. Okay. That was a relief off my shoulders. And that's the success to that story. But it doesn't end there, okay? I still didn't know at the time that my neighbor was a crackhead, okay? There was no signs. You know how they say there's functioning drug addicts, baby? Because she was functioning, and I had no clue. Now, she did suck her thumb. I should have known. Grown woman sucking her thumb. Now, let me stop. After the success story of me getting my money for the rent, so I could pay my rent, okay, it didn't end there. I still didn't know that my neighbor was a crackhead. But what confirmed it for me was the next day, my neighbor's husband came knocking at my door, and she wasn't there. Her or the baby was not there. So he came knocking on my door looking for her. I was like, I don't know where she was at. Now, mind you, after she stole my money, I wasn't fooling with her anymore. Because for me, she was a thief. Like, I pretty much stopped school, right? I was still on break. Pretty much stopped school. And I remember one of my homegirl coming down, and she would watch the baby, because I only had like a month left for that semester. So she came down, but we'll talk about that another time. Because baby, when she came down, the husband came back, and it was dramatic. So I'm going to tell y'all that in another part of the story, okay? Because I knew of some of the places she hung out, because, we hung out, went places, hung out with other couples and things like that. We jumped in the car like, we was detective, Lightning McQueens, okay, to go find this chick or whatever. I got in the car with the husband and his friend, and we rode out. We went to all these different houses that we hung out at. The husband did know some of the people, though, so it wasn't like it was random people places, Now, let me tell you, even the people houses we went to, they had nice houses. They was very accommodating. We game night. We had so much freaking fun. That's why I was like thrown off with this lady being a crackhead. And naive. You know how naive I was. or just didn't see or know the signs, because I up in that. I just didn't see the sign. I just didn't see the signs. Like, okay. I never once saw any signs of them doing anything, even when we went to other people's house. And that don't necessarily mean that other people was on drugs or anything like that, right? But I just never saw the signs. And baby, I thought I was observing at 19. You baby, these eyes be scanning everything and sitting back observing everything. Now you can't get over with nothing with me, okay? Anyway, neighbor lady was not at these locations. So we came back home. When I was about to go into my apartment, the friend that drove us around, he was like, let me talk to you. Come here, let me talk to you. So he came into my apartment. He asked me, he was like, you ain't see her pipe laying around? And I was like, no, I don't even know what a crack pipe look like. Now, if you say a tobacco pipe, I know what that look like. But a crack pipe, I did not know what a crack pipe looked like. Anyway, he told me basically, like, stay away from her. And don't ever let nobody mess with your money. Okay, and I appreciated that from him. I noted it, and he advised me, and my mama advised me of the same thing. Duly noted, and I live by that till this day. Okay, so the takeaways of this. But the friend told me that his husband. Now, mind you, the husband was from a very affluent family. This is what I got from the friend, And the family wasn't really messing with him because he was married to her. The day she ran away, that bitch was right down the street watching everything. Now, I don't know if he whipped that ass some more after he gave me the money. I don't know. Story. I remember thinking over the years, like, damn, mama's prayers really worked and covered me. Because I really could have been in an effed up situation. I didn't know the people's houses they took me to. Although they was nice people. And I'm not blaming any of them. They were nice. No, honestly, they were nice people. I could have been set up with a scheme that Tar set up. You know what I'm saying? Could have been trafficked or anything. That's how naive I was. So I thank God every day I made it out of that situation. Because it really could have been bad. The other takeaway, and I will say this to any young person, do not get married so young. Really be selfish with your life. And if you decide to go with somebody, get married to somebody young, make sure they're supporting your dreams as well. Not just their dreams. And lastly, if you don't do nothing else, pray for discernment. If you don't know what that is, it's if it ain't feeling right, if that gut feeling is telling you, stay your ass home or go left, listen to that voice. If you feel like you can't get out the situation, find a way to get out the situation. Follow your gut. That's why I say thank you, Heavenly Father, for getting me through, okay? And that's all I got for this story time. I'll be back next week with another story time. But in the meantime, comment down below if you have been in a crazy situation and what was the outcome.